The Simon Filer Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Wonderful to have John Marr joining me on my podcast. And this podcast is one with a difference because we've also got Cliff Reed and Sarah Kennedy joining us, who narrated John's audiobook, and the wonderful Karen Guest, who's been instrumental in John publishing his book, Carmen's Legacy, both in print and now as an audiobook. Welcome to the Simon Filer Podcast, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, a bit of background. John had a serious car accident when he was 42, in which the 18-year-old driver of the other car was killed. It also led to John having frontal lobe damage, which affected his memory, and in turn, in a downward spiral, affected his employment. Things were incredibly rough for John and his family, his wife Ange, and their 4 daughters, Katrina, Michelle, Jasmine and Carmen. 2.5 years later, absolute tragedy struck when John and Ange's 18-year-old daughter, their youngest Carmen, fell asleep at the wheel of her car, hit a tree and died in the accident. To say I cried editing and producing John's story is an absolute understatement. However, the hope that shines through the book is immeasurable, and John's title is one of courage and determination. So first up, thank you so much for engaging me to produce your audiobook, John. It's been an absolute privilege. And thank you to Karen for reaching out to me. I'd like to find out firstly how you and John met, Karen.
Well, John and I met through a friend of ours who's been a mentor for us for a number of years. His name's Andrew Jobling. And John and I attended a Zoom meeting, and after the Zoom meeting, I followed John up and I pursued him a little bit after I got a copy of his book and just asked if I could help him edit it because I thought it could be done a little bit better. And John actually said, no, he didn't want to do it. And I just left it at that for a while. And then we just, I kept pursuing him. Don't ask me why, I just needed to. Because I thought I could add value to it. And eventually John agreed to let me edit the book after I did a bit of a sample copy for him. Is that about it, John?
Look, it is. And what actually happened, Karen purchased my book over my website. So I didn't take any notice of that. I didn't know who had just purchased the book because there was a few being purchased. And then Karen contacted me and asked if we could have a Zoom meeting. And she talked about the book and said, look, she thought it was fantastic. She really enjoyed it. She felt it emotional and she felt like she felt part of the book, the way it was written and the way she read it and felt so personally contacted with it. And that was the end of that conversation. But then she pursued me again. And she said, can we have another Zoom meeting? And I said, yes, we can. And Karen said, by the way, I'm also an editor. Now, I'd paid a lot of money to have my book edited previously, and it was a terrible editing job. I learned a very valuable lesson, and this person was someone who is held in high esteem as an editor. And we actually re-edited it, Ange, myself, Michelle, Katrina and Jasmine. We sat down and went through it again. The mistakes were glaring. And Karen said, by the way, I'm also an editor. And I said, uh-oh, you've seen that there are problems in the book. And she said, there are a lot of problems in the book. Now, Karen then said to me, what I would like to do is what's called a soft edit, which would be lightly going through the book and doing what she could pick up really easily and edit the book. And of course, like it's business, there's a cost to that. And I said, yes, look, go ahead with that, Karen. That's great. And thank you for such a generous fee. Anyway, she rang me back it wasn't on Zoom, but she telephoned me and she said, John, I'm going through Carmen's section of the book where you lost Carmen and I'm crying. And she said, I no longer want to do a soft edit. I want to do a hard edit. And I would like to do this properly because this book deserves the best edit it can have because it's such an important book. And I feel part of your family because of the book. I feel part of what you've done, what you've gone through. And I said, oh, well, what will that cost, Karen? And Karen said, she said, half of what I'm charging you for the soft edit. So she halved the cost because Karen was so invested in Carmen's story and our story as a family. And we've become really good friends over Zoom. We've never met, but Karen has helped me in so many more areas because I've never written a book before. There's heaps of pitfalls for everybody who's been involved in writing books and producing audio books and all that type of thing. And Karen has held my hand all the way along the way, and I really appreciate what she's done for me. It's been amazing. And what we see now is a completed book, which was launched on the 14th of February 2022, which you can see the photo in the background. That was the unpacking of the book with my Ange and my girls beside us there holding the books. And now, just over 12 months later, thanks to all of you guys, I have what I mentioned before is an audio book that I believe is even better than my book. I would rather listen to the audio book because it is so powerful. And Sarah and Cliff, the way that they have narrated the book, put the feeling into the book, they captured everything that we all went through as a family in that book. And I know that everybody who listens to the book will feel our pain. And I've had so many people say to me, when I've been reading the book, I got to about the 4th or 5th chapter and I was reading about your family, and then all of a sudden, this became my family. I started reading about my family and what my family would go through and it felt like we were going through what you were going through, which is, I'm an author by name, I guess, on a book, but I'm really not an author. But the editors, like Karen said, I would not touch the way you have written this book. It's very personal and it's very you.
That's amazing. Well, it's so fantastic that you guys actually met up, because I totally agree. It's an incredibly powerful story. It actually took you many, many years to write, John. Tell us how you started writing it, from the get-go.
I will, yes. Well, we lost Carmen, of course, on the 18th of November 1995, which was 2.5 years after I'd had a car accident and was really seriously injured. And I started giving talks at secondary colleges to try and stop these young people or educate these young people about being safer road users. And as I was going along doing that and recognising how embracing these students were of my story and our family story and of how we lost Carmen. And I've had students call out to me from the other side of the road down the street, and they've called out, Carmen. They forget my name, but they call me, they're calling out Carmen. And that proved to me that they were really impacted by Carmen's death and her story. And I realised I was getting older. So I also felt that I needed to put this down in writing so that Carmen's story was never, ever lost. I believe it's a powerful story that I'd love to see it on the shelf in every family's home, because it would make a difference in every family's home. And so I needed to put it down on paper. So I started. It took me 20 years to write the book. Ange was adamant that I shouldn't write the book, that I wouldn't be able to write the book. It would be too hard on me. And it was incredibly tough. Since burying Carmen was the hardest thing that we have ever done, this was the second hardest thing that I've ever done. I'd be writing the book, and particularly when I got to the chapter where I was going through Carmen's car crash, and receiving the news and knowing what our family was going through and what we were all going through, writing it down word by word on the computer broke my heart every time I put a word down. And I'd be crying and I couldn't see the screen, and I'd push the keyboard in, slam it away, and then I'd walk out and Ange would see me and she'd say, you've got to stop doing this to yourself. And it took 20 years. There was, at one stage, it was over 12 months before I was able to get back to the book. Because I'd have to reread what I was up to. And I burst into tears. And for a 50 and 60-year-old doing that, that was something that was really confronting for me, and it was really hard to cope with. But I got there, and I'm incredibly proud of the book and the audio book. I'm incredibly proud of Michelle, Katrina and Jasmine, because they went through the same thing as I did when they wrote a chapter each, has added enormous value to the book. So my name's on the front of the book, but Michelle, Katrina and Jasmine are equally as important and added such value to the book that everybody who reads it and everyone who hears the audio book gets our heart and soul.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. They know us inside and out. They know what's happened to us, and they know every one of our family.
Yeah, it's certainly very, very confronting, and I can't imagine how difficult it would have been to keep reliving that, you know, going back to it and having to go through it. But the way that you conveyed it in the book is just so real. Again, tears like throughout the whole book. But now, obviously, it's available as an audiobook with Cliff and Sarah doing the incredible narration. And I do say incredible myself because I was crying my eyes out through it from your words and their narration. But throwing it out to one of you guys, or to both of you actually, tell me how you got through reading the work, you know, being so difficult. I'll start with you, Cliff, because you did the main narration from John's perspective.
There were several times that I would come inside from my office outside, where I did some at the studio, but I did a lot of it here at my office. And there were times that I just had to stop, and I would come in, and you know, Mrs. would oh, what's the matter? So I just got to the worst chapter. It's just, you know, it's heartbreaking stuff, and I do tend to feel things, and I've told you, Simone, I can't remember if I've related to John, but as a funeral celebrant, I deal with people who have lost loved ones all the time. I write the service, and there are times that I will write, and I'll get to the end of it, and I feel almost part of the family. It's like, I wish I'd known this person. And that was what it was like with Carmen, and certainly with John and Ange and the girls as well. It was like, I just want to reach through and you know, give them a great big hug. But there are times the writing is so beautiful. It's indelicate to say, but it's a kick in the gut, some of it. It's really hard to, but it's a message that has to go through. And if I can, you know, jump to your side of the microphone, Simone, I'd like to ask John, when did it stop being something I absolutely have to do and start being catharsis?
It never did, to be perfectly honest. Even when I finished the book, I actually felt, when that photo in the background, that was the day that I felt complete relief and an enormous weight taken off my shoulders. It was never ever a situation where it was helping me to cope better, to accept better, or anything like that. It was never cathartic for me. It was something that, I'm a very determined person, and it was something that I had to do. I had to finish because I knew. And to hear you say that something was so beautifully written from someone who failed English every year, that is amazing, you know. But it was, as you know, all written from the heart, all written by me in no terms that an author, a top author, may write things. It is in the way I speak, the way I am, and who I am, and who our family is. So it was just all personal, and the weight that was lifted off my shoulders was incredible. And it gave me, when I looked at that book, it gave me a new purpose in life. And you guys now have given me another purpose in life.
I think it's brilliant. And even the term Carmen's legacy,
yes,
this is going to live on for a long, long time. Mrs. just went to work. I don't know if you could hear that.
But, you know, John, I also want to interject here because, John, you and your family all said Cliff's voice was remarkably, you know, similar to yours, just the inflections and the way he read the book, basically.
Yes. My girls also said, because we had a number of other narrators to listen to, and every single one of them said, it was like listening to you, Dad. You the Cliff, which is just, and Cliff, thank you for that, because you brought out my feelings, my speak, if you like. which is really great.
I think we were kind of almost linked because I was seeing your face, and I had photos of Ange and of the girls as well. So I was seeing you, even if there wasn't a photo or whatever, I could still see you here when I was doing it. And there were several times that I had to stop. I just couldn't continue, had to keep going. So I think the legacy is going to live on for a long, long time.
Yes.
And who I'm willing to bet that when you put that final full stop in there, Carmen would have somehow spoken to you.
Yes. Look, you've seen through that book how I talk about when I give talks at secondary colleges or corporate conferences or whatever, Carmen is always standing beside me. And I know that. Do you know, I have felt Carmen. So many times I have felt Carmen. When I hit the wall, Carmen would come and hold my hand. I know that, but it's a strange thing that you might think that someone who's 72 years old might say, but that is exactly how I feel. And none of us have ever felt that we have ever been without Carmen. Michelle in particular, she's like my mum. She has this sixth sense, and she had that when she was driving towards Carmen's accident. And Michelle has said so many times, "Oh, Dad, I had to ring you because Carmen's just been here." And it's just amazing. And she comes at the times when we need her most.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
No one ever should believe, if they have lost a loved one, no one should ever believe that loved one is very far away from them, because they never ever are.
That's so true, so true. And you know, the family are closer than ever, I guess, and Carmen is driving everything that you guys are doing with Carmen's legacy. But before a little bit more on that, I want to have a chat with Sarah, because Sarah read Ange's and your daughters, Katrina, Michelle and Jasmine's sections. Yeah. How did you, Sarah, find the strength to read these sections, and what are your thoughts on them?
Similar to Cliff in that many breaks were needed to be had, and I suppose when I get when I feel myself slipping, this was a very special job for me. I hesitate to even call it a job. Yeah. I'm probably going to get emotional now, and I know that I shouldn't, but I just feel things very deeply as a mother as well. I have a daughter who's going to be driving in the next couple of years, so it's hit me on several levels. But from an audiobook narrator's perspective, needing to take lots of breaks and also remind myself that I'm not the one that should be feeling all the feelings. We want the audience to be feeling the feelings. It's my job as a narrator or an actress to make other people feel, and not to get too caught up in my own emotional journey, and to make sure that I am conveying eliciting the emotional response from an audience or a listener, and that's, I suppose, what I need to do to pull myself back and say, am I being self-indulgent in my performance, or am I allowing the audience to have the experience? Like, I'm just the narrator. John's done such a marvelous job with the words, full imagery running in my head. I can see everything. I can see, it's like a movie. When a book is really well written, I have the full movie running in my head, and I can see every leaf, every blade of grass. I can hear the floorboards creaking in the house, the smells, it's all there. And so my job is just to make sure that I can somehow allow an audience to also share in that experience.
Amazing. That's incredible. Yes. And certainly you and Cliff brought it to life. But both to Karen. Sorry, yes, of course. Yep.
Sarah just made a comment there, and she said, "I'm just a narrator." Can I tell Sarah and Cliff, you two are not just narrators. You are Carmen's narrators. Oh. You are our narrators. And you are the most special narrators that I have ever, I don't know any other narrators, so you are the most special narrators. And the emotion, Sarah, that you put in for Mandy Del Vecchio, Michelle, Katrina and Jasmine, and in Carmen's The thing that she gave to me in hospital when I was, the get well card, the wording off that, it shone through, and it was amazing. And I mentioned earlier, but not on here, when I sent your reading of Michelle's chapter to all of the girls, Jasmine rang Michelle immediately after she heard it, and she said, "Michelle, I don't want you to listen to your chapter from Sarah," because we just all cried through it. You did such an amazing job. You both did such amazing jobs. Our hearts and souls and our being, when people listen to this audio book, they will feel it, and it's thanks to you guys.
That's fantastic.
For me, and I've told Simone this. For me, it was it was an honour to be able to not just do this book, but to be allowed into your family, because it's so raw. It's really raw, and it touched me as well, just on the idea, as Sarah said, of having a daughter who's about to start driving. My son's been driving for a long time, but my best friend in Perth has two boys who are 16, and at the moment they're going through getting their learner's permit. They're going to be on the road this time next year, and I just see some of the craziness that's on the roads, and I am not the best. In fact, John, sometimes I think of you when I text or something. It's like, oh, geez, John wouldn't like this very much. Sorry.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah, don't
do that.
Don't do
it.
Don't do that. Put that phone away. But I think of those boys in Perth and the fact that they're going to be out there on the roads with all of this craziness. So I was thinking of them as well. And Sarah, you mentioned about the words with the visuals. I could see that tree. As much as I didn't want to, and smell and hear the sirens and smell the smells and that sort of stuff. And it starts with the words. If the words are not there, we can't do it. And the writing was quite magnificent. But it really was, it's the only word I can think of. It was an honour to be able to do this for you, because it's probably, I won't even say possibly, I'm going to say probably saves lives. If it saves one life, if it saves one life, one family that's not going to have an empty chair at Christmas time, then amen to you.
Back to the narration, John and Karen, because I did send you quite a few demos of people that I thought, could do justice, but obviously you chose these two amazing voice talents. What clinched the deal for saying, okay, it's going to be Cliff and Sarah?
Well, could I just say something here? When I first heard Sarah's voice and Cliff's voice, I knew that they were going to be the narrators.
Yep.
But I couldn't say to John that these are your narrators. I had to leave it up to John because it's his book. And I knew he would like both of you. And you've just done it so much justice. It's just been amazing. And yes, I've cried through the whole lot.
And what about you, John? Did you feel the same?
Well, probably 2 months prior to that, when I thought about doing an audiobook, I would have listened to hundreds of narrators. They were from America, they were from Australia, they were from everywhere. And then through Karen, I received a number of narrators through you, Simone, which was absolutely amazing. As soon as I heard Sarah's voice, that was it. I did not have to listen to anyone else. As soon as I felt Sarah's emotion, that was Sarah. That was always going to be Sarah. I listened to a number, and every time I kept coming back to Cliff. And I listened to them. And my girls are busy girls, like they run businesses. And I eventually sent 3 through to them, and every one of them came through and they said, Dad, you have to have Cliff because we just listened to you with Cliff. And which was just amazing because, as Karen knows, I actually considered narrating my own voice myself.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't, because Cliff and Sarah, you guys were just so professional and so you spoke as family members.
Mm.
I can't put it any better or stronger than that. You were part of our family. You were part of our book. You were part of our life.
I
And
felt that, yeah.
yeah, that's who you were.
Well, that's so cool. So cool that we could bring it all together and, you know, now have this amazing product. And I'm just going to add that Cliff and Sarah are amongst the best in the business. Like, they are just incredible voice talents that can do amazing work like they have done with Carmen's Legacy. But yeah, they certainly can brought tears. I can only say tears because it's obviously an incredibly devastating story, but there's a lot of hope through it. There were key points throughout the story that hit me. Obviously, the saddest and hardest to deal with was losing Carmen, your youngest daughter, but also the fact that you were deeply affected by the death of Emma, the 18-year-old girl who died in your car accident. These feelings clearly contributed to writing Carmen's Legacy, but they've also contributed to the ongoing work that you're now doing with road safety, which it all started with. But tell us more about your road safety program, John. When and how did that all sort of come together?
Yes, when I had my car accident, thankfully I wasn't at fault. I was actually stopped on the highway when poor Emma lost control of the four-wheel drive that her dad told me he bought her to keep her safe. And then his next comment was, and I've killed my only child. She lost control of the four-wheel drive just at 60 kilometres an hour and rolled up the road and landed on the roof and bonnet of my car. And I was really badly injured and ended up in hospital for a fair while. And then I was recovering. The four specialists all told me, John, you will never work again. You've got frontal lobe damage, a really bad short-term memory problem. I have 26 plates and screws in my face, which is good because I gave them all a bit of a tweak so I'd look really cute. And,
I've got to try that one.
And then I also have neck and back injuries, which affect me a lot, especially when I'm standing, talking, giving presentations. Then we lost Carmen, of course. And what happened with Carmen, we lost Carmen, and just 2 years after that, there were 4 young people killed in Bendigo. And I said, I have to try and stop this from happening. So I put together Carmen's road safety presentations. And I started speaking at schools. The first time I spoke at schools, I gave 3 talks in 1 year. That's all I could get into was 3 schools, doing it for nothing. The schools still wouldn't have me. Eventually it grew to 80 schools a year, and then COVID came along, and now it's down to around about 45 a year, but I'm still doing it. But I have every student who hears me, they become really impacted and committed to being the safest road user they can be. Adults cry at my presentations, but the students are the ones that really I'm aiming at. And I've spoken to 450,000 students over the years. I've spoken to over 300,000 attendees at conferences and seminars. The biggest presentation group that I spoke at was at the $1 Million Roundtable in Vancouver, Canada, where I spoke to 12,500 delegates. And the speaker before me was Sully, who landed the plane on the Hudson, which was
wow, that's cool.
Goodness.
And when I gave my presentation, he met me as I was coming off the stage, and he said, John, that was absolutely amazing. Could you please have lunch with me? And I didn't say no. So it was just wonderful. So it's taken me on an amazing journeys where I've met the most amazing people. But Carmen has always shown me the way forward. The way forward has been the book. The way forward then has been the audio book. And now, as Karen well knows, that I have my biggest challenge ahead of me, but my most fruitful, I would hope, for Australia. And that is that I've had a meeting with the Ministers for Road Safety Australia, and I have a meeting next Friday with Catherine King, who is the Minister for Road Safety, MP for Road Safety Australia. She's in Canberra, but she'll be in Ballarat. And I'm meeting with her, and I've put a proposal together where Carmen's legacy is taught in every school in Australia. 330,000 Year 10 students, I'm hoping, will read Carmen's legacy as a one-term subject, and there'll be 25,000 Year 10 teachers that will be teaching that, so they will be learning the same lesson. And the next year, another 330,000, the next year, another 330,000. So in 3 years, the first group will be getting their licenses. And 1 million Australians will have been taught what we already know, how dangerous our roads are and how we must act and react and be socially responsible people on the roads. And I believe that this will change the future of road safety in Australia. And Catherine has been a wonderful supporter of mine.
I want to say congratulations, firstly. This is incredible. If you can get this into the schools,
Yes.
It is going to change the situation on the road. I mean, it's so impactful.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that's brought a tear to my eye. That's incredible, and I'm so excited for this.
Look, I'm really excited. And to be perfectly honest, I've said to Karen, I can't see how they can say no. You see, I have all of the figures after going to Canberra and meeting with the ministers. They provided me with all of the figures from road accidents and injuries on Australian roads. Last year, it cost Australia $27 billion for injuries and deaths on our roads.
Wow.
For one fatality, the average is for a fatality on an Australian road, the cost is $3.2 million for a fatality. And for a hospitalised injury, a serious injury on our roads is $261,000. Now,
That's huge.
And I've put to them, to Road Safety Australia, and I would like it to actually go to Parliament where it can be passed as a bill, that this will be put in place, that every year we teach and educate our students. You see, we have a Road Safety Australia system whereby they put barriers up on the side of the roads. They put speed humps in, roundabouts, and fill in the potholes and all that type of thing to keep Australia safe. But the problem we have is that driving past those side barriers is a motor vehicle with a human sitting behind the wheel. And that's our problem. And one of the ministers asked me a great question. She said, John, but what about the 30, 40 and 50-year-olds? How are you going to educate them? And I said, that's not my job. That was your job 10, 20, 30 years ago. I said, if you do nothing, if you don't educate now, you're still going to have the same problem and the same issues on our roads as what we've had for the year after year. We need to start somewhere. The Year 10 students are the ones that are learning to drive. They're the ones that are full of testosterone and taking risks and don't see any problems or any issues anywhere in the world, like we were when I was young, and I can still remember when I was young. And we need to educate these people, because I believe in the youth of Australia. I believe that they are our future and they will make that difference on our roads. And I've already received a template from Parade College in Melbourne, where I've put together the questions that will be asked by the teachers. So I've said to us, Road Safety Australia, I'm saying that Road Safety Australia pays for this to be done. So every single book, 330,000 of them, plus 25,000 more for the teachers, are put in the hands of these students and teachers at nil cost to them, nil cost to their family, and nil cost to the schools. It's paid for by Road Safety Australia or by our government.
Yeah, good call.
The cost will be $5.7 million. And also the other thing that goes in there is an audiobook, because the term is commenced by listening to the full audiobook, which is 4 hours and 24 minutes. So that will take them 2 weeks as part of their education. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, John. I just want to say pairing the text with the audiobook is going to make the message so much more accessible to a whole bunch of people who can't focus. They're not strong readers. They may respond more positively to the audio. You are widening the net and reaching so many more people if you present both options. It's marvelous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep, that's how I had a really interesting meeting with the representative, our council representative in Ballarat. So needless to say, I then went higher because I don't like stopping. I'm determined.
Yeah.
And
And
now
this is Carmen's legacy.
Carmen,
That's the power.
correct. So it'll cost, and Sarah, you're absolutely correct, because I thought about the fact that I was not a good reader in school, but I could watch TV or listen to things, and I would soak it up.
Mhm.
So we'll have now the children with the book, and there are other students who will listen to the audio, but at the same time they will be going through the book and following it at the same time. Others will just sit there and listen to the audio. Now that's fine, as long as they're getting the information. And the cost is $5.7 million. It will cost our government to put a book in every single student's hands at year 10 and the teachers. If we save one life, there's $3.2 million saved. If we save 22 people from being seriously injured in a car crash, there's another $3 million. The whole thing is nil cost. So, and the question was asked, how do we educate the older people? We can't. That train has left the station. We need to educate from next year. And they suggested to me, we will give you funding to do a pilot program. We don't need a pilot program. We know people are going to die on the roads. We know they're going to get injured. Let's teach these young people so that they can lead Australia out of the darkness that we're in at the moment. In Victoria, where I am, we're 31.4% more deaths than the same time last year.
Wow.
Yes.
So nothing's working.
No. And last week, our Commissioner for Police was in tears on TV, on the news, because 5 people had been killed in the one car crash. And that's the largest single number of people killed on our roads for over a decade in the one car crash. And yesterday, there were 2 more killed in Melbourne. The day before, I live in Ballarat, and 20 minutes from my home, a 31-year-old man who I know was killed.
It's definitely time. Yeah, it's time for this book.
It is time.
And I was thinking, John, if you I think it would be absolutely appalling if this doesn't go ahead for you to get into the schools. But the school kids, I've got a 16-year-old and 19-year-old, so I've also been through teaching them to drive, which is harrowing in itself, as you all know.
Yes.
But we have open conversations. And if they're being taught this in school, they're going to come home and talk to their parents and talk to their friends, because it's so hard hitting that you can use that as an argument, saying, look, these kids talk to their parents, it might help them be safer on the roads, in which case I'll be doing your job as well.
They will take the book home, and their parents and their siblings will read the book.
That's right.
So it won't be just 330,000 people learn road safety in that 1 year. It could be 500,000 or 1 million people. We don't know. And one of those students is going to give it to his best mate, and he'll say to him, listen, you're taking too many risks on the road. I would like you to actually read this book. I think it will help you. Now, I believe in our youth. They will see what they need to do. And as I've said in the book, and as you have read for me narrating the book, you are the most important person in the world to the people who love you so much. And you can't do to your family and friends what Carmen has done to us. And we have one life only to live. We have one chance at this. And I believe Australia, and I'll be saying to Catherine, you have the chance. Catherine's from Ballarat, so I know her. I'm from Ballarat. And 2 people from Ballarat can change the future of Australia on the roads. I really believe we can. And all of you will be playing a massive part of that, which will be tremendous. And, I just have to get it done. I'm determined I will get it done. It'll be done.
Good for you.
I think this would make the entire story from start to finish would make a terrific documentary.
Yeah.
I think that would help solidify the message as well. And if I can just have one quick point, I agree with Sarah. I'm not a reader. I do not read for fun. I read for my work. My wife reads for fun. She'll read a book in 2 nights because that's her enjoyment. I don't read. I do audiobooks.
Yes.
When I'm in the car, I'll be listening to audiobooks. When I'm in the gym, when I'm out walking, I don't listen to music. I'll be listening to audiobooks. I'm looking, though I don't know if I'll go back and listen to this one because normally we artists, once we're done, we just go, oh, that's it. Oh, fine. No, because if I listen back to it, I'm just going to figure everything that I did wrong. But I think that what you've done with the book and the audio book, you're going to cover a lot more bases. But
Yes.
just been listening, sitting, talking to you and listening, I think this would make a terrific documentary. The whole story from start to finish. And it is so sad. It is really so sad that it started with your car accident, John, and then with the passing of with Emma as well,
Yeah.
and then certainly with Carmen. It's a great story that
Yeah.
more people should hear. And for old farts like you and I, John, we're that's it. We're gone. We're into the shadows almost. But for the younger people who are coming
Make sure you
through,
stop texting. In your car.
Well,
I do. I think about you if I sort of yes.
Put
I'm
it in the
coming to
glove
work or whatever.
box.
I go, oh, John's not going to like that. Sorry. So the
It
message
starts
is
with you.
the message. Yes, the message is getting through. One more thing, because I don't want to take over. I remember an old joke when we were much younger. What's the most dangerous part of the car? The nut holding the steering wheel.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a truism then, and it still is now too. But if you can save lives, and you will, all power to you.
Can I tell you that you and Sarah both need to stand by as well, because in 3 years' time, so I'm talking 2026, there will be a chapter added to this book when I get this into the schools, because that will be when the first group of students will be getting their licenses.
Yep.
And that story will be told as another chapter, or maybe 2 chapters in the book. And it will also have what I am absolutely certain, it will have the figures in there that will show the reduction of fatalities and injuries on our roads in Australia due to these young people being educated.
Yep.
Yeah, looking forward to that. You did mention before, one of the strongest slogans that came throughout your story was, don't let a member of your family do what Carmen did to ours.
Yes.
It's so incredibly powerful. How do the kids and people that you do the talks to react to this?
There's lots of tears, but the biggest thing is at the end of the presentation, there are lots of hugs. And during the presentation, students hug each other. Boys hug each other because they're best mates, and they understand and they recognise what they will be doing. I say to them, this is what you will do to your best mate. And they put their arms around each other. And you see someone who's got tears in their eyes, and the next person next to them notices that, and they give them cuddles, and the tissues come out and things like that. It's invigorating. And you know that you're touching their hearts. And as I say to them at the end, I said, I know Carmen is now in your life, but she's in your heart forever. You'll forget me, but you'll never forget Carmen. And when you will take Carmen with you as you travel the roads. And I believe truly that you will be the safest road you will always possibly be, because of Carmen being in your life. And I've had parents and teachers either email me, telephone me, and let me know that they've pulled over and taken a power nap. And it's because of what they either heard, or their son or daughter has come home from school and told them how important power naps are. And because we're in the country, we drive long distances, and there's always 1/3 more people killed on country roads than what there are on metropolitan roads in Australia.
Empathy. You are doing God's work. You're doing incredible work. They are driving you with Carmen at the helm to get this message through. John, you've already probably saved lives by what you've done, by people reading your book and by going in and doing your talks. How can people find out more about you and engage you to get in the classroom? Well, soon it's hopefully going to be Australia-wide and they won't have a choice. But for people that do want to get you in now, and it's going to be incredibly invaluable to the future of Australia and the death road, the amount of deaths on our roads, how can people find you?
the best way is to go to my website, which is carmen.com.au. So it's a pretty easy website to remember. And my email is carmenroadsafety@gmail.com. And the other thing they can do is they can put Carmen's legacy into TikTok. I am now the oldest TikToker in the world.
I see. You're awesome.
Yes,
I wanted to ask you about that. When you do your TikToks, that it is so engaging, and the kids are like, they love it.
They love it. Yeah. So what happened at the very first school that I went to this year? They said, how can we follow you? I said, on Facebook. And they said, we don't do Facebook. We all do TikToks. So 4 of the kids got my phone. They set me up as a TikToker on Carmen's legacy. And now I go to the schools. And Monday week ago, I walked into a school at Upper Yarra. When I walked in, mind you, a 3.25 hour drive to get to Upper Yarra from Ballarat, leaving at 6:30. And more than that, coming home through Melbourne. This young fellow, as I walked in the auditorium, he said, I follow you on TikTok. Like that. And then about 3 or 4 more of them said exactly the same thing. And I said, well, I've already done the TikTok out the front of the school, in front of your school sign, letting everybody know that I'm here at Upper Yarra. And when I finished, one of them called out and said, can we do a TikTok with you to get put up on your TikTok page? I said, absolutely. I said, is that all right? I said to the teacher. He said, by all means. So a young girl got up with me. She stood there. We did the TikTok. And the first one where I was standing out at the front of the school has had 18,000 views.
Wow.
The one that was done with the students has had 16,000 views. So from that one school, we've had almost 30,000 views. So and then the next school, it had 15 or 16,000 views as well. And the last school that I did last Friday, they said, we've been watching you on TikTok and that such and such a school has had 16,000 views. We're going to beat that. So
that's sensational.
But the other thing that has happened, there have been hundreds and hundreds of students that have said, would you please come to my school? And they've named their school, so I've sent emails off to those schools. So these young people want to learn. They want to learn how to be safer road users. And that's what is so encouraging, and that's why it must become an educational subject within our curriculum.
Yeah, well done, John. I'm looking forward to hearing the progress from this Friday's meeting, and we will have to have another podcast to find out how it all pans out, because it's an exciting time in Australia and for our youth not to be dying on the roads anymore. Okay, so you can go to the website, carmenslegacy.com. You're on TikTok. You can get the book, print, and now the fabulous audio book via your website or on all the outlets as well, so Audible, but preferably go to carmenslegacy.com.au.
Carmen.com.au.
Oh, sorry, Carmen.
Yeah. Carmen's Legacy is my TikTok.
Okay.
The oldest TikTok. But carmen.com.au is where they can purchase the book and purchase the audio book.
Awesome.
And I am just so pleased to be part of all of you, because you have made the audio book what it is. And I can honestly say that I will guarantee that whoever listens to this audio book will be absolutely amazed at what Simone, Karen, Cliff and Sarah have all done to produce this, because I'm incredibly proud of it, and so is our family, and we're really pleased, and thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you guys for all joining my podcast. Karen, thank you for, hassling John in the beginning to get his book edited, because you were the one, I guess, that started this journey really in earnest to get it to where it is now, reaching out to me. And Cliff and Sarah, you guys do an amazing job always, in particular for Carmen's Legacy. And John, you are incredibly inspiring. I haven't met your family. I do feel part of it. They are incredibly inspiring for after all these years, still pushing this message, and hopefully, like I said earlier, putting an end to so many lives being lost on our roads across Australia. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being part of my podcast today.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Big hugs.
Big hugs, yes.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Simon Filer podcast.
What's your story?
Contact Simon for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.